So we started a new series today. I'm really excited about this series because I don't exactly know where it's going to lead. But I'd like to start with a don't put it up yet, Lydia. Let me explain it a little bit. This is just on a piece of wood, but this was actually a Nike billboard during the Atlanta Olympics in the 90s. I forget what year that was exactly, but this was the billboard. Put that up, Lydia. That you don't win the silver. The silver, you lose the gold. I remember one time I was watching Jerry Seinfeld doing stand-up, and he was talking about this, and he said, you know, if you get a bronze medal, you're happy that you got a medal. If you win the gold, you're ecstatic, but if you win the silver, I just missed the gold. You know, this idea of kind of coming in second place. Now, here's the thing. Nike has come out with, over the years, some kind of controversial messages, haven't they? Right? We all know that, and some people have boycotted Nike and so forth, and I have some friends that say, I'm not buying Nike stuff anymore. Like, I get it, that's okay. But the thing I think that Nike is getting at is they are fighting to help us to believe in ourselves, to kind of throw caution to the wind, and to go for it, right? That's their slogan. That's their slogan, I mean. Nike's fighting against compromise, against settling for second place. And so this was for the Olympics. It kind of flies in the face of the heart of the Olympics, doesn't it? The heart of the Olympics is about competition and sportsmanship and camaraderie. And this seems to kind of fly in the face of that. And so I was thinking about this, and I was thinking that, okay, Lydia, you can take that down. So I was thinking about how, for this series, how to start it out. I kind of know some places where I'm going to go eventually, and stories that I'm going to tell from the Bible, but I didn't know exactly how to start. And as I'm living my life at the current moment where we are with two boys, 21 and soon to be 19, both off at college, and all the different dynamics that brings. Some of you have already passed that stage. Some of you are currently in it. Some of you, that's still yet to come. Like, I get that. But what it seems to me is that at times we live in two, it seems, now just bear with me, that we live in two different worlds. One world is a world of commerce, right? Of work, of paying bills, and many other things. And this world honors people who are attractive, who are athletic, who are productive, right? We put these people on pedestals. Think of the winners in the Olympics. The winner is on the highest pedestal, aren't they? The gold medalist is on the highest pedestal, and then down. And so we elevate in this one sector of the world that you and I live in. You have to admit that you live in that world too, don't you? Don't you? Raise your hand. You live in that world, right? We all live in that world. There's no denying it. There's no saying that we don't live in that world. In this world that I'm talking about, there are more losers than winners. Hence the logo, right? You don't win the silver, you lost, right? We even joke about that. Well, all you are, you're just the first loser, right? And so in this world, there are more losers than winners. But yet there's another world, isn't there? For many of us, this is the world of faith. This is the world of the Spirit. And who are its heroes? The heroes in this world are people of compassion rather than competition. Wouldn't you agree? In this world, you don't win by beating your opponent. No, in this world, you win through things like sacrifice, for sharing with them, rather than finding their weakness and exploiting that weakness to beat them. And in this world, there are far more winners than there are losers. Now, when I was young, and maybe for a good part of my life, I exclusively lived in that first world. What choice did I have? Not because I wasn't offered the other. It's just, well, what choice did I have? I loved competition. I loved a challenge. You guys are all like so quiet and so. Well, what other choice did I have? How else would I know where I stood on the ladder of winners and losers? How would I know? And as a young boy, that was how I measured myself. I measured myself against other people. Carl Jung said this: Act 1 of a man's life is the story of his setting out to conquer the world. Every young person, I can speak for men, boys, because I am one, right? And that's our dream. In whatever area we set out to conquer the world. Now, growing up, I did see another world. I did see the world of faith. I did see the world of the Spirit. But as a young man, I thought that place was a place that you went to get repaired. You went to rest. You went to get strength back so that you could re-enter the other world. Are you with me? You could re-enter the other world fortified with strength. Think of this. Think of a boxer, right? We go watch Melissa's boyfriend fight whenever we get a chance, and at the end of a round, during that round, he's out there expelling all his energy. He's out there protecting himself. He's out there being the aggressor. He's throwing punches. He's defending himself, right? And after that round is over, he retreats where? To his corner, doesn't he? And his coach or his manager, whoever it is, comes out there and works on him. And you ever see them take those cold pieces of steel and put them on their eyes for the swelling so they can see. And what are they doing? They're helping him. They're giving him, they're refreshing him, giving him water. Why? So that he can go back in there and fight. And so as a young person, that's how I kind of saw these two worlds. And maybe I lived a good part of my life like that. And maybe hopefully you're contemplating those worlds in your mind right now of how you have come to understand them. This idea that one is this competitive nature and the other is a place of retreat and rest. And we even learn it in church, don't we? That you work for 6 days and then there's what? Rest. There's a Sabbath rest. And we're so thankful, God, that you give us this Sabbath rest so that we can do our 6 days of work. And the Sabbath rest is my time to get rejuvenated, to refresh my soul. And it's my time with God. So I go back out in the world and continue my life of competition and battle and worry and all these things. These two worlds, success has very, very, very different meanings. As a boy, I had dreams. I'm sure like you had dreams when you were young as well. And there was a period in my life when those dreams were more the dreams of my father, the dreams my father had for me, which wasn't a bad thing. I think it was a bad thing. He had dreams for me, and I long to live those dreams out as well and fulfill those dreams. And I'm going to talk about why that is in a minute. But as we grow older, we have a tendency sometimes to give up those dreams. Sometimes we shouldn't, and sometimes we should. Sometimes we come to a realization, we come to terms with our limitations, right? And that's a good thing. That's a mature thing. Sometimes we give up those dreams just because we don't believe in that. I think that's what Nike's trying to accomplish in a lot of their ads that are, even the ones that are controversial. I would just suggest that you always take time to look deeper into something than to just think about the surface level. At the surface level, yeah, it can bother us. But on deeper levels, same with the Bible. Look at deeper levels of its meaning. And I think that what Nike's trying to do is say, look, sometimes you just have to not give up. Not take no for an answer. And that's kind of what they're trying to get at with this not winning a silver medal, right? Of pressing forward and going for something. What is it with these competing worlds? Carl Jung says this: Act 2 of the story of a young man is realizing that the world is not about to be conquered by the likes of him. Sometimes that's good, sometimes that's bad. What is it with these competing worlds? What's going on in our lives? And this is what I hope to talk about during this whole series. Now, if you have your notes, you want to write some things down in there. I don't have much today because I want you to kind of think on your own and write your own ideas down. But it seems to me that we have, as human beings, we have some basic needs. And this is what I want to try to talk about today, these kind of basic needs in setting up this whole series. The first need that I think that we all have, all of us, have a need. Number one, we have a need to be successful and important. Successful and important. The second thing is this. The second thing, I think we have a need to think of ourselves as being good. Someone who is deserved of approval and the approval of other good people. We want to know that we matter. We want to be taken seriously. I read a story. This was really interesting. Maybe you can think back and relate to this. The story of a woman who recalls when she was young, she stayed home from school one day because she was sick. And she was hearing noises of the world outside her window. And she was dismayed to realize that the world was going on without her. Right? This is this world that we live in that we want to know that we matter. We matter. Our existence matters. And that when she's home, she's out thinking, well, everything's carrying on without me. This need that we have to feel important, it's real. It's real. And it drives us to place importance and great value on things like titles, corner offices, first-class travel. That's why it feels good to be recognized by people that are important people. Let me tell you a story. When I was in college, and we had graduated, and we were getting ready to do our commencements and all that. Well, that year I had worked at a restaurant, and at that restaurant I was kind of the host, and I would see people in that restaurant. What's called the general superintendent of the denomination that I was part of. So he's the top guy of that denomination, right? The general superintendent would come into this restaurant every single morning and eat breakfast. He would eat oatmeal. And so I got so used to him coming in, I would have his oatmeal ready for him, have his coffee ready for him. He'd come in, he'd sit down, I would talk with him and everything. And I got to know the general superintendent of this very, very large denomination. So at commencements. I went to a Bible college, and of course the dignitaries at the graduation were the head of that denomination. And so we were having our commencements at this large church there, and we were all in the back, all lined up, and I was there with all my friends from college. And everybody came walking in. They all had their robes and gowns and everything on, and they came walking in one by one, and we were all watching them all walk in like they were saints or they were gods or something. And then the general superintendent came walking by, and he stopped, and he looked at me, and he greeted me, and he called me by name. And afterwards he went by, and everybody was looking, you know the general, or not that I know him, but he knows you. And so in this world, these things are important, aren't they? To be known by somebody who is important. It drives us to do things. This need motivates, think about it, this need to be important. It motivates inventors and entrepreneurs to stay up late to find better ways of doing something. It motivates doctors and researchers to spend hours and hours and hours looking through a microscope to possibly find the cure for a disease. It leads us. Have you ever been in the newspaper? Anybody? Have you ever been in the newspaper? When you were, how many copies did you buy? Huh? You don't have to answer, right? Right? I have a scrapbook at home of all the newspaper clippings from football in high school. All these clippings in there. You know, why do we do that? Why do we buy? Why are we in the paper for whatever, and we buy, 10 copies of this paper? It's because of our need to feel important, that we matter. Now, for a long time in here, we gave out a book to first-time guests, and it was called How Good is Good Enough. Do you remember that book? How Good is Good Enough. So at the same time that you and I live in this world that I'm describing to us, we also live in another world. We have the need to know that we are good. When we gave this book out, and the idea was how good is good enough, meaning that listen, you don't have to be good for God to love you. I mean, that's a great message. It's an awesome message. But even that message that I'm going to try to develop here in a minute lacks a little bit because of this idea of these worlds that we live in. The basic premise of that book is that God loves me no matter what. And it's still a good message, but still something is missing. Don't get me wrong, I'm glad that God loves me in this way. And I hope that you are too. I love my children no matter what. And I hope that you love your children no matter what. However, isn't there something about catching them doing something good? Catching them being generous, seeing them being forgiving, seeing a report card with great grades on it. Something about that you go, that it just wells up in you and you say, son, daughter, I am so proud of you. I'm proud of you. Now think about this for a minute. If that weren't a need of ours, and if that weren't still a good thing, think of this. Think of if you were ever in school and you worked hard on a paper, right? You stayed up long hours, night after night, just staying up and writing this paper, and you put your heart and soul into this paper. And then you take it to your professor and you hand it to her, and she takes it, and you're just so proud, right? Because you worked so hard at it. What if she were to take that paper and take a pen and just put an A on the top? So you got an A. You'd be going, wait a minute. Wait a minute, you didn't read it. Oh, that's okay. Don't worry about that. No matter how bad you did, you still get an A. Like, no, I worked hard at this. Are you following me? Right? We want to know that when we do good, there's something to that, right? And this idea, listen, and I'll be the first to tell you, I have promoted this so much at Freedom Life Center, and I still will promote it because I'm not against it, but not aligning it or not balancing it with something else. That's the idea that God loves you no matter what. No matter what you do. You can't do anything to change his love. That's a good message. But however, you want to know that, like when you do something good, right? Now listen to me. When you do something good, you know God's going, that's my son. That's my daughter. I'm proud of you. There's a passage in the Bible that says this, that when my end has come and I see God face to face, he says, well done. Done. My good and faithful servant. Well done. We have a need to hear that, don't we? Our children have a need to hear that when they work hard to do something, to be good, to hear, well done. It wouldn't be very satisfying to turn that paper in and just get an A. And everybody else turn it in. You know somebody didn't do hardly anything. Turn their paper and they get an A. You'd be like, wait a minute. This isn't right. Right? I worked hard at this. And so we want to be acknowledged for that. Okay, so here's the thing. What's going on with all of this? And what does all this have to do with God and the church? Hey, Rick, can you give me a glass of water? Thanks, buddy. Here it is. You ready for this? I think it's this. I think we live in just one world. I don't think we live in two worlds. And so the title to the series is, I did different ideas for this, right? I was thinking of, everyday, just everyday sacred, or just in every way. And so I was kind of putting things together. Every day in every way sacred. I want us to, thank you so much, Rick. I appreciate that. I want us to see that this, because I think maturity in our life is this journey of these worlds coming together. And there isn't this world that we live in that's sacred. That's the Sunday times, or those types of things. And then there's the profane. The profane is the opposite of sacred. It's just every profane. Doesn't mean like profanity, although that word comes out of that. Profane just means the everyday, the mundane. And so what I want us to look at is maturity. I think maturity as a human being is allowing and seeing and helping these worlds come together, and to see that all of life is sacred, and all of life has extreme meaning. So I think that we live in one world, but God speaks to us in those worlds. Now, okay, this is where I want you to pay attention and follow me. There's two voices of God. One voice, and you'll see it in the Bible, one voice is a stern voice. Thou shalt not. How many have heard that voice before? Absolutely. Thou shalt not. Driving us to be more. It's kind of Nike. That's kind of a stern voice. Listen, you don't win the silver. You have lost the gold. It's this stern voice. And the stern voice drives us to be more, to reach higher, to demand greater things of ourselves and others. Forbidding us to use the excuse, well, I'm only human. No, you are human. And being human is an awesome and wonderful thing. And yet there's still another voice. And this other voice of God is the voice of compassion, the voice of forgiveness, soothing. It's a comforting voice, a cleansing voice, a reassuring voice that reminds us of this. When we've aimed high and we've fallen short, we are still loved. He, God, understands that when you have given way to temptation, that doesn't define you forevermore. Truth is, we need both of these voices. Eric Fromm wrote a book, and the book was called The Art of Loving. And in this book, he distinguishes two kinds of love. He calls one a motherly love and one a fatherly love. Now, knowing full well that either are capable of either. Are you with me? Okay? Either are capable of either. A motherly love says this: I will love you no matter what. You are flesh of my flesh. And no failure that you ever have will ever change any of that. We all understand that kind of love. And no child should grow up without experiencing that kind of love. And then there's the fatherly love that says, earn my respect. Earn my love. Get good grades. Make the team. Go to a great college. Get a great job. Land a great job. Have an awesome salary. And he says there's these two sort of that seem to be competing loves. Now look, like I said, don't get me wrong. Every child needs to grow up to know that parental love will never be withdrawn if we make a mistake. I think it's vital to every child's upbringing. I think when people have difficulty in life, it's because sometimes they didn't hear that message. They didn't get that message. And so they're constantly their whole life trying to compensate for that. And of course, we need to hear the same message from God, that we're forgiven. That God's love for me and for you is not dependent on my performance. When we're beat down with guilt and we hate ourselves for our actions, we need to hear God as mother saying, it's okay. It's okay. Nothing can separate you from me. There are those times that we need that. But when you've worked hard, when you've gone the second mile, when you've sacrificed, when you've been generous, honest, there is something lacking in the message that no matter, I love you despite yourself. We need to hear, well done, thou good and faithful servant. Well done. We need to hear those words, that you're good. That you're good. And I love you for that. So I've been doing, I told you this a couple weeks ago, I've been doing funeral services for my friend who owns a funeral home, who people from out of town, they come here, they don't have a minister here, or maybe they're not even affiliated with a church, but they still have this desire to have some sort of religious ceremony. And so in the process of doing those services, I've been doing a lot of reading, and coming across different stories and stuff, and I came across this story of this man. He was talking about his father. His father died, and this is what he said. He was talking to the funeral home director, and he said, talking about his father, he never said anything good about me. All my life, I wanted to hear him say he was proud of me for who I was and what I was doing. And all I ever got from him was a sense that he showed me his love by putting up with me. In my head, I know that he had a problem talking about his feelings. In my head, I know he thought his way was the right way to make me do better. But in my heart, I feel so cheated. I always got good grades in school, never got into trouble, went to a good college, I make a good living, live in a nice home, have a wonderful family. Would have been so hard for him to just one time tell me that he was proud of me. And now he's gone, and he's dead, and I'll never hear it. A great theologian, my friend Jeff Walters in Florida, said to me one time, he said, I've come to realize something in his life. His father started a company, his father and uncle started a company, and it was successful. And then Jeff and his brothers, and I would say mostly Jeff, but he might say different, took over the company and really did well. Moved the company to Florida and really did well. And I think that part of the doing well for Jeff was doing it like we all do as young men, as boys, as men. We want our father to be proud of us. And we want to hear those words. Son, I'm proud of you. And Jeff told me one time, he said, every son needs to hear those words. Son, I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you. And oftentimes, the son is waiting to hear those words, and he never hears them. But what Jeff told me is, what he realized is that every father needs to hear something as well. He told me every father needs to hear this. Dad, wow, I wouldn't be the man that I am today if it weren't for you. I think about it as a father now. More than anything, I want to know that my life mattered to my boys, that my life mattered, that I made a difference in their life. And so every father is waiting to hear from their sons, Dad, thank you for I couldn't have done what I have done in my life without you. And so Jeff told me, when he kind of realized this in his life, he went to his father and he told him those words. He said, thanks, Dad. You have made it possible for me to do what I've done. You've taught me how to be a leader. You've taught me how to be a great businessman. If it weren't for you, I could never have done these things. And Jeff told me something. He said, it was then and only then that his father was able to say to him, son, you have done more than I ever dreamed could possibly have been done with this company and with your life. You've gone so far beyond me. And the trouble that I see so often is that both father and son are waiting for the other one. How many remember that movie, Daddy's Home? You remember that movie, Daddy's Home? Anybody see that? It was Daddy's Home 2. It was with Mark Wahlberg, and who was the other? Will Ferrell. And their fathers were Mel Gibson and John Lithgow, right? That was the fathers. And in 2, they show how the difficulty that there exists between fathers. So many movies have that premise. Now, I'm not leaving out women because I think it's the same issue. Like I said, I speak from a male perspective, that's all. But the difficulties between fathers and sons. Sons want to hear, son, you're good. You're good. Now, listen, the mother's voice is important, right? So I always tell the story. When I was in high school, I was the starting quarterback on the football team. Pretty big deal, right? Pretty big deal. And my mother came to a game. It was one of our first games, and she's at the game. And now we're playing McKeesport in our first game. So we were from McKeesport, so we knew all kind of people there. And so my mother's there, and this is at our stadium in Elizabeth Forward, and somebody from McKeesport sees my mother there, and they say to her, her name was Agnes, Aggie, what are you doing here? Well, my son plays on the team. And they said, what position does he play? And she said, I'm not sure. But he's number 19. And they looked and they said, well, your son's the quarterback. Yeah, whatever. She'd been proud of me if I was the water boy, right? There's something lacking in that. There's something lacking. It doesn't matter if you're the quarterback or the water boy. I'm proud of you. No, but I'm the quarterback. I want you to be proud of me for that. It's a big deal. And so the mother's love is needed. That voice of God is needed. But I'm here to say this. I'm here to say that there's another voice of God in the Bible. And sometimes we take this other voice wrong. We take it as an unloving voice. It's not unloving. A father's voice isn't unloving. A father's voice is doing what? Now, like I said, I'm saying father, don't get me wrong here. Either can do either. Okay? Just for able to explain it. That we need to hear both of these voices. What happens when our need to think of ourselves as good people collides with our need to be recognized as important? This is where I really want to try to go in this series. The melding together of these worlds. So our life is spent, I think, in an effort to narrow this gap between these seemingly opposing worlds, to bring them together and unify them into one life. Every day, in every way, sacred. It's all important. It's all meaningful. It's all our life. Lydia, put up that last picture. He was alone, and the night was totally dark, and he was afraid. He tried to calm his fears by repeating to himself over and over again, I'm alone, and as long as I'm alone, nothing bad can happen to me. Suddenly, someone grabbed him from behind and threw him to the ground. He tried to fight back. You see, he had worked hard all his life, and he was strong. But his adversary was just as strong as he was. They fought, and they struggled, and they wrestled through the night. Neither one able to gain advantage over the other one. Who is this person? The man wondered. Who is exactly as strong as I am? Where did he even come from? And what does he want with me? Then, as the first rays of light began to appear, he felt this mysterious stranger twist his leg and escape from his grip. The two men, sweating and exhausted, regarded each other with the grudging respect men have for a worthy adversary that they can't defeat. The man knew he would never be the same person that he was just a few hours before. Come back next week and we're going to explore this epic struggle. Let's stand. Father, help us as we endeavor to explore, explain, understand, identify our life and the different worlds that we seem to live in that seem to contradict one another. Help us, God, to have open minds to draw these worlds together and to see that there's one world, that there's one life that we live. And it's all holy, it's all sacred, because you're part of every bit of it. Help us as we explore this story of this epic struggle. We thank you in Jesus' name.